Show yet another redstar 11 run. So here we are. All right, pretty standard map. Got 4 players in the run. All of us are using the pretty standard double barrage and single mass battery with bond. So nothing too unique here. Typical build out here of battleships. We'll follow mine, so we'll follow my ships. I'm going to first start targeting down here. There's a lot of what you're looking for in the beginning. You're looking for P11s here in the center ring. There aren't any, and there happened to be a cluster of 2 right over here, and I figured, hey, I can probably just focus my time over here. So first move I made, I jumped in my ships, went in with barrier active, went in with double fortify active, jumped straight on the planet itself because there were multiple capital ships there. Was able to also snag a storm just directly more or less to the 6 o'clock point from the planet, which puts it in range of my ships from shooting from the planet. So it's always useful to do that. You can pick up a storm. This P11 for whatever reason only had 2 storms. Usually they have 3. So at this point I'm just kind of cleaning up, trying to preserve some mods. My fortify is about burned down. All my mods, at least the weapons, fortify, are both at level 12. So my barrage is level 12, MassBattery is level 12. At this point, again, for those who haven't seen a redstar 11, there's only 2 enemy ships still left that barely holding on. Guardian over here and that Sentinel. When you kill the last ship inside of a redstar 11 for the first time, it will then spawn the Hydra, and you do not want, unless you're prepared for it, you do not want to be in the same sector because it will ramp up the Hydra's barrage. So at this point, I'm usually trying to head out, clear out a nearby P7 that just had a convenient Colossus position. Colossus position. So here I am just kind of again cleaning up. I'm burning a suppress down here just so my ships don't get too burned. I've only got 2 suppress. Usually I want to save 1 at least for the Hydra. So again, just mostly here, just burning time. I've cleared, I can easily clear the last 2 ships in there. So I'm just kind of going around helping keep the redstar progressing while my mods are cooling down under Time War 12. So moving my ships up into a rich hydro sector. This one happens to have a bomber and a 1 storm. Also picked up 2 planet destroyers that were en route to the 2 planets I'm working on. That's usually a best practice. Even if you can't clear your P11, your first one, you always try and destroy the destroyers. If memory serves, there are, I know there are 7 P11s, and I want to say there are 5 or 6 destroyers. So there's multiple. So you want to try and pick them up quick because they're kind of a mess when they get onto the planet. And if you don't want to jump onto the planet, like for example, this P11 over here would be an awful planet to target from the very get-go. Because there's only 1 capital ship on it. So you've got 2 Phoenixes over here, you've got bombers spaced out over here. Obviously, you've got storms. They're out of position. Usually they're equidistant from each other, but that's because my barrier overlapped over there. So I'm now at the point here where my mods are refreshed. My only concern at this point I was thinking was I burned my blast shield. It's only level 5, so it's not super big, but I burned it just picking up 2 destroyers and a bomber. So I'm a little bit concerned with that, considering especially that there are bombers over here. Let me toggle on the heat map. This is my tablet. I don't usually play on my tablet. Figured the video would be better over here. But so again, I'm cooling down mods. My bond ship is ready to go. So I've now spawned the Hydra. I went in, cleared it out, just simply waiting for him to come to me. There are some tactics with keeping Hydras when using the bond method to keep Hydras in gun range, but outside of the sector. I did that for a long time, but it runs into some weird issues where a lot of times the Hydralings, when they spawn, will spawn outside of your gun range, which makes it a pain in the butt. So I now just am sold on the method of just bring the Hydra right next to you into a sector, especially like a P11 sector for your next target. And just have fortify on and be ready with area shields and a suppress. So I burned a suppress on this upper Hydraling, this stage, I guess stage 1 or 2. I'm not sure how people call these, but this more powerful Hydraling. I did get a storm in sector, which is fine, and I don't want it directly as my first target. I just want my MassBattery slowly chewing down those darts. Now, again, I've more or less finished off the Hydrolings. Moving on now to pick up these more or less obnoxious bombers at this point, and trying to pick up another storm before my barrier burns out. So I've now picked up my second barrier. Each of these times I've been using 2 barriers. Occasionally I need to use 3 barriers to clear a P11. It just depends upon the layout and honestly how good I'm doing that round. But so I picked up my bombers now. Now my goal here was to quickly pick up this Colossus before killing all the rest of the trash, and then I knew I was going to want to walk away and let the Phoenix reposition itself, so I didn't end up chewing down too much of the trash, as we call it, the Sentinels, Interceptors, and Guardians. But I do remember that there were 2 Phoenixes here, so I knew I wanted to get them by themselves, otherwise they'd be a pain. So at this point, again, I'm in the mode of I've more or less cleared the planet. I'm not too worried about it, so at this point I'm just trying to help clear out the map. So I'm going to start fast forwarding a little bit here. If I remember right, I moved straight north into this P7 after here. So, yep, just waiting on the, I think I was waiting just on a cooldown of my shield. Yep, so there's my blast shield's back up. Just coming in and getting basic cleanup at this point. Nothing too fancy. And now I'm going to come down, and I'm going to use suppress here on the farther of the 2. That way it won't ramp. Just toggle on area shield. Trying to preserve health on my ships. So clear this out. Now this is where I get into a little bit of a sticky situation. Again, I have 3 ships inside the sector. The Hydra started just totally chewing down my Bond ship, and I didn't have Fortify ready. I'm a mobile player, so cycling through my ships is a little bit trickier. But here I go. I've now put my ship back in. I'm going to teleport over to a rich sector that usually has a lot of trash and things kind of on its own over here. And again, same methodology, turning on both of my fortifies. I'm a little confused on this one. I had always assumed that the Hydroling would always target the closest fortify ship. It didn't. For whatever reason, it targeted my center one, which was fine by me. It was full health. So again, just clearing up the Hydrolings. Noticed it spawned outside of my gun range. They have a bigger gun range, if you didn't know that. Hydras and Hydrolings have larger radius of attack than we do, than our player ships do. So here again, double storm, single Phoenix is in a rich sector, very common. At this point, I'm again just trying to spread out, pick up these storms because they can become obnoxious to clear when there's no trash in the sector. What I've humorously call wet noodling, slapping these guys with wet noodles of barrage when they're not ramped. Coming down to clear out the Phoenix because he also would be a pain to kill without some other trash in the sector. But at this point, it's just pretty standard textbook clearing. So I will go ahead and just kind of zoom out a bit here, defocus, and I'm just going to start speeding along. These guys are all doing the same thing. So you can see another Hydra just brought in. He even had a position where he put his MassBattery outside. First time seeing that. Firefly's a pretty veteran player, so I'm not surprised to see him do a tactic like this. I just have personally never done it. It does require, obviously, ideal positioned asteroids. But the reason he's doing that is it's keeping this barrage from ramping. There's only 2 ships of his now inside the sector as opposed to 3. So it just doesn't do as much damage. You see the rest of the map is more or less clear. These guys have done a pretty phenomenal job. This is a standard barrage play, so it's fast. So I'll just start to speed through now. We're just going to start clearing the rest of the map, so nothing too fancy here. I will show a little bit of loading, just so that you're aware of how it looks. I don't think I've shown that in a prior video. So at this point, I'm setting my blast ship home. It has barrage, it has blast. It's no use to me really during loading. Most players do this, especially the dart players. They will send their dart player home, or their dart ship home most of the time, because they tend to be a liability with the ghosts. So everyone's jumped in, everyone's slapping a bunch of RSC all over the place. He's just waiting, I think, on teleport cooldowns because he's not guarding a P11 at this point. But yeah, so standard play. Red Star 10, most players won't, at least a handful of players generally won't continue to keep their area shields on. My thought process is for 1,000 Hydro, it's well worth the expense of the Hydro expense to keep the ship safe. Most of us have Time Warp 12 at this point, so you can just cycle Time Warp on continually. The second it's off in activation phase, it's ready. The cooldown's already consumed as well. So nothing too fancy here. Again, I just keep my shield up. I keep one ship usually directly on the planet. And this one I just, again, a lot of players, this is a Red Star 10 strategy. when ghosts are coming, you'll usually send your MassBattery ship or your dual laser. Most players use MassBattery out to just fight. It minimizes the risk of ghosts actually hitting the civilians in case there's any timing on your shields. But most of the time, honestly, most players you'll see in Red Star 11 by now, they generally just leave their area shields on. So you're seeing 2 or 3 of the 4 players just leave area shield on. This player, for whatever reason, isn't. Could just be that they're not attentive at the moment. They could be doing other things. But this is exactly why you keep it up. Ghost gates will spawn, and you'll normally want to run 2 area shields for this exact reason of they can spawn and they can align with the timing of a shield refresh. So hence 2 area shields, and you'll overlap them. I usually will do, if I'm worried at all about it, I will do a 30-second overlap. It's just, again, keeps things simple. So at this point, we're just loading, waiting, hanging out. Speed this up again. Nothing too crazy here. Just waiting on loading, which in Red Star 11, they take, to load a single artifact, it does take additional time compared to a Red Star 10 or below, where Red Star 10 and below, it's a minute per relic, or artifact, I mean to say. In Red Star 11, I want to say it's a minute 40 or a minute 30. We'll check on the replay here once we refresh. So everyone's jumping out. There's still 3 planets to load. So 1, 2, and 3. At this point, I believe I was in my Red Star, which is also good practice. When I jump to my Yellow Star, when I'm jumping outside and I'm not paying attention to the in-game, I usually make sure I have a fresh shield up. That way, again, if there's any kind of nonsense going on, I'm at least available. So I'm moving over to prepare to guard the next station here. I'm jumping my ships down here. The final planet's down here. Just waiting on either this player or this player to move over. They don't actually for a while. And for whatever reason, this player doesn't activate their area shields. It made me a little uncomfortable, so I just figured, hey, I'll just pump my ships out of the way. Very simple move there. But I don't think it was really at risk, but better safe than sorry. It would take me longer to rebuild and just be more of a pain for me than anything. As you can see, my credits are maxed out. It wouldn't have mattered credit-wise. It was just going to be a time and annoying thing. All right, so these ships are heading back. I believe I'm going to start loading them in just a second here so we can see how long it takes. I want to say, yeah, so 3 artifacts are taking 4.5 minutes. So yeah, it does take additional time to load. So if my math is right there, it's 1.5 minutes per artifact to load on Red Star 11s. And that's not just the Red Star itself, it's the planets. All other planets load at normal speeds. At this point, I'm going out to pick up some mining. Nothing too fancy on my miners. We already did Red Star Extender. I've got most of my miners are loaded just this way for Red Star purposes, with the exception of one of them has Time Warp on it. Just that way they can pivot faster, they can move faster. They don't need a ship to move. But that's about it. If you have any other questions or things you want to see, let me know. But always happy to answer questions. Anyways, thanks all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something new.